All right. So we were talking about probability, okay? That was on page 85. And we were talking about basically if you were to see the term P at X, having the P in statistics means that we're going to find a probability of something. Okay? So we use the expression flipping a coin where it could either land down heads or tails. So the probability of tossing one heads is 1 out of 2. Bless you. So let's bring this a little bit further. We also talked about yesterday, we did an example of if we had 365 slips of paper and each one of those slips of paper had a different date, you know, January 1st to January 2nd, all the way to December 31st, and they were all the exact same piece of paper, and we shuffled it all around, and we drew one out at random. What's probability was January? It was 31 out of 365 because there's 31 days in January. There's 365 days. We're not including a leap year. If we picked like an individual date, so if we picked January 11th, which is today, what's probability pulled January 11th out of 365? It's 1 out of 365, so it's a lesser probability of that taking place. So on page 86, they talk about rolling a pair of dice. Now, on your page 86, it shows all the outcomes that could take place with a pair of dice, which is sometimes harder to look at just all of the dice of seeing actually what takes place. So what I'm going to do is if you had a 6-sided die, you can either get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 if you rolled that die. Agree? I realize there's multiple-sided die that you can find, and that's fine, but we're talking about just a standard 6-sided. But if I had another die, so a pair of dice, the outcomes are these. Oops, 1, 2, 6. Stirrup can count. So when you roll a pair of dice, you add the top numbers on the die together. So if you roll a 1 and a 1, you can get 2 points. If you roll a 1 and a 2, you can get 3, so forth. Just fill this out. And then if you roll a 3 or 2 and a 1, you can get a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Hey, buddy. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, so the purple on the screens basically are all the outcomes that could take place on a pair of dice. If you had a green die, you can roll 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you had a blue die, you could roll 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Once you roll the dice, you look at the top numbers, you add the top numbers together, and that's where you get the purple. Okay? So what's the probability that if you had a pair of dice, you could roll a 1? Is a 1 up in the purple? No. So the probability of rolling a 1 with a pair of dice is 0. It can't take place. Okay? If you had an individual die, it's 1 out of 6. But if you had a pair of dice, you can't roll a 1. You can't sum up the top numbers on dice and get a 1. Same thing is, what's the probability I rolled a 13? I can't roll a 13 because I can't get that many points. Okay? So just take a look at the purple. Take a look at the purple. What are some things that you kind of notice about the purple on my screen? Are there some numbers that happen more than others? Which number appears to happen the most? 7. Okay? So 7 happens most often. Okay? Hey, I have a question. How many outcomes are there, total outcomes that there could be? Not like different numbers, but outcomes. How many outcomes could take place up in the purple? How many numbers are up in the purple? 36. So I have 36 outcomes that could take place if I roll the dice. And sometimes it doesn't make a lot of sense because it's like, well, I see that the number 5 happens 4 times. How is that a different outcome? Well, a number 5 can happen by rolling a 4 with the blue and a 1 with the green. It could happen if I rolled a 3 with the blue and a 2 with the green, and so on and so forth. Okay, so there's ways that you can combine your dice together for certain numbers to come up. Okay, so does everyone agree that a 7 happens the most often? So what would the probability that I roll a 7 be? How many outcomes of a 7 are up on the board? 6. How many total outcomes do I have? 36. Okay, so you don't have to reduce fractions in probability, but sometimes it makes more sense to reduce the fraction. If I were to reduce 6 over 36, reduce that fraction, what does it come out to be? 1/6. So I have 1 out of 6 of my rolls of the dice. If I kept rolling dice, I have a 1 in 6 chance that I'm going to roll a 7. That means 5 out of the 6 rolls that I do could be other numbers. Does this make sense? All right. Now, let's say I want to combine. What would the probability that I roll a 7 and a 7? Okay, I want to roll a 7 on one roll of the dice. My next roll, I want to roll another 7. Okay, so probability rolling the first 7 is 1 out of 6. We already found that. Okay, does the pair of dice remember what had been rolled the last time? No, it's an inanimate object. It doesn't have a mind. It doesn't have a computer. It doesn't remember. So if I rolled a pair of dice, I said, hey, probability of rolling a 7, 1 out of 6. And then I'd say, okay, I'm going to see if I can roll a 7 a second time. It's 1 out of 6 again. And if you wanted to figure out the probability of rolling a 7 and then rolling a 7 on the next roll, just multiply the fractions. So multiply top to top. 1 times 1, 1. 6 times 6, 36. So the probability that I roll a 7 and then another 7 is 1 out of 36. That means that 35 out of the 36 outcomes that would take place rolling the dice twice wouldn't be a 7 and a 7. It might be a 7 and something else, and it might be 2 completely separate numbers. Okay. Story time, because you'll appreciate this. I lived in Vegas. Agree with me? Okay. The greatest night that I had in Vegas, my buddy George, who's a math teacher, he and I got hired at the same time. He says to me, Stirrup, you got to come out with me and my brother-in-law. Okay? His brother-in-law was as close to a made man as possible, which means mafia. Okay? This guy is a short Italian guy. I walk into George's apartment and I said, oh my gosh, did you win? Because the guy is down on the floor and he has stacks of hundreds, $100 bills sitting out on the floor. And he's like, nah, I'm about $17,000 down right now. Meaning he lost $17,000 at the casino. So he rolls up these $100 bills and he asked me to shove a roll of hundreds in one pocket and I shove another roll of hundreds in another pocket. We're all walking out with about $35,000 in cash. Okay. He also has a $50,000 cashier's check that he could walk over to the casino cage and get $50,000 for. So I'm like, I enjoy playing the game of craps, but I don't have this kind of money to play craps with. So we go over to a place called Boulder Station, which is a casino that is on the Boulder Highway, which is not one of the main Las Vegas Strip casinos. And the guy, as we're walking in, I know we're going over to the craps table, and he kind of puts his hand on my shoulder. Hey, and he says this to me like in this term. Hey, you gonna throw the bones for me? Throw the bones. I'm not sure what throw the bones means. So I look over at George. He goes, dude, he wants you to roll the dice while he bets. Oh, that makes sense. So we walk up to the craps table. The guy drops about $6,000 or $7,000 down on the table, and the numbers that he bets on are 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. Okay? The 4 and the 10 pay back double whatever you bet. So if you bet $100 on a 4 or a 10, if you hit a 4 or a 10, you would get $200 plus you could take your original 100 back. Does that make sense? The 5 and the 9 pay out a little bit less because they happen more often. So I want you to think about how many ways can a 4 happen? A 4 is 1, 2, 3. 3 out of 36. 3 out of 36 reduces to 1 out of 12. You have a 1 in 12 chance of rolling a 4. The 10 has the same exact outcome. There's 3 outcomes of a 10. Okay? Now, his money can stay out on the table on these bets as long as I don't roll the infamous number 7. Okay? Are you following me how this is how the game of craps works? Okay? Now, a 5 doesn't pay out quite as much because a 5, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 outcomes of a 5. So 4 out of 36 is a lesser probability than 3 out of 36. Okay? The 5 and the 9 have the same probability of taking place. The 6 has a lower payout because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, and the 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. Okay? So he puts money down. Now, I'm not talking about putting a couple bucks down. He basically puts $1,000 on the 4, puts $1,000 on the 10, $1,000 on the 5, $1,000 on the 9, and puts $1,200 on the 6 and $1,200 on the 8. Okay, because this will allow a better payout to take place, you know, whether you're not having an obscure denomination. Okay, so I start rolling the dice. Now, at this point, the people who work in Vegas realize people that are betting like $5, they're fine. They're the meat and potatoes of the casino. Okay? When someone's dropping $1,000 or more on each one of those numbers, so think about this. $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $6,400 he has on the table to bet. If a 7 goes out, he loses $6,400 in a roll of a dice. Okay? So I'm rolling for the guy. And what he would do, rather than collect his winnings on any of those numbers that were hitting, is he would press it. And this is what it means when he presses it. So let's say I rolled a 4. His 1,000 would pay him now $2,000 in his hand. That's his winnings. But he'd say, press that bet. So this $1,000 bet on the 4 now becomes a $3,000 bet because he put his winnings on top of it. Meaning if the 4 rolls again sometime before a 7 comes up, his 3,000 bet is now going to be 6,000 in winnings. You following me in this madness? Okay, it's pretty cool how it works. So he's pressing. I'm rolling pretty good. I'm like, man, I never rolled this good. I'm like, this is awesome. So as soon as he presses each one of these numbers up, so if this is pressed up to $3,000 and this is to $3,000, he's starting to collect money back on it. He won't press it again. So he wins about $23,000, $24,000 while we're at the table, while I rolled. I'm no longer rolling. I subbed out. So someone else is rolling, but you can bet while someone else is rolling. So he does the same thing. Well, the floor manager notices this guy has an awful lot of money he's playing with. He also realizes that me and George have pockets that are bulging because he realizes we have an awful lot of money in our pockets as well. This casino manager wants us to stick around because we have something that the casino wants. We have money. The casino knows the odds are in the casino's favor to win money. That's why they build them so big and so quickly. So, after he's at the table for a little bit, the pit boss or the floor manager is there, and a guy looks at the floor manager, and the guy's like, "Oh, how you doing, sir?" He's trying to schmooze him a little bit, make him feel good about himself. So George's brother-in-law says, "Hey, you got a piece of meat or something?" "Sir?" "Yeah, we're hungry. You got steak or something?" "Yes, sir." Pulls out of his pocket a little tablet, writes down on this tablet, gives him a piece of paper. He goes, "See that long line right over there? Waiting to get in the steakhouse?" "Yeah." "Go right to the front to the maitre d', give him this piece of paper. You'll be seated immediately." Because the casino doesn't want us waiting in line because they want us to eat as quickly as possible to get back out on the floor. You following the story? So we walk in. They seat us at a nice table. It's one of those places where they're pulling the chairs out for each of us. They lay the napkin down on our lap. I mean, it's a pretty nice place. The meal is going to be free. We get steak and lobster. It's good. I ate for free. I have not bet any of my money. Get back out to the table, probably 45 minutes or so later. Winning a little bit, losing a little bit, winning a little bit, losing a little bit. This is all his money, not mine. Not George's. George's brother-in-law. We're out there for a couple more hours. Winning, losing. Floor manager still recognizes this guy's got a ridiculous amount of money. It's like, "Sir, is there anything we can do for you this evening?" He's wanting us to like them. Right now, George's brother-in-law is the best friend in the casino because he's rolling big money. So George's brother-in-law goes, "Well, you got a car?" That's a car if you don't speak Boston. Guy reaches in his pocket, same tablet of paper, writes down something on a piece of paper, says, "Yeah, if you go right out this door, you can have the limousine for the night. We'd love to have you come back and finish your evening here." So the casino realizes we have their car with their chauffeur who knows how to get back to the casino. So we go walking out of the casino, and there's limos that are all lined up. We give the piece of paper to the guy who's in charge of the limos. He takes us over to a stretch Rolls-Royce limousine. Okay? This isn't the traditional limousine. This is made by Rolls-Royce. So it's got to be, at the time, $600,000 or $700,000 car. Today's standards, probably about a $2 million limousine. And we got a driver. We're like, cool. Now, this is back in the mid-90s where we don't have the fancy cell phones like y'all got. We have a car phone in the limousine, and then a friend of ours had a brick phone. The old one, about the size of, you could put it in your back pocket. It was huge. Well, it's right after Valentine's Day. and we have the Sadie Hawkins dance taking place at our high school. And my friend Joe was a science teacher, and Ed were both being chaperones for the Sadie Hawkins dance. And it's now around 11:30, so the dance is wrapping up. So we call from the Rolls-Royce limo Joe's brick phone. Say, hey, Joe, who's with you? He said, oh, it's me and Ed. Hey, do you guys want to come out with us? We got a limo. Like, oh, yeah. Yeah. So we say, well, meet us out in front of the school, and we'll be the best limousine that's in front of the school. Because I taught at a school similar to this, where kids had limos. We didn't really have the stretch buses and things like that like you guys have now. So they come out, get into the Rolls Royce, and we go to the Stratosphere. Now, Ed can imitate anybody. Okay? Ed and George's brother-in-law were like two peas in a pod. So the guy says to Ed, hey, you got turtle bones for me? And Ed's like, yeah, man, I'll turtle bones for you. And he's going back and forth. And Ed has no idea what the heck turtle bones means either. We had to explain it, roll the dice. So we're at the Stratosphere. Same thing. The guy is dumping crazy money on this craps table, the game of dice. Ed's rolling a little bit. The guy drops about $20,000. The same type of person, floor manager, comes over, wants us to feel welcome at the Stratosphere. So we're there for an hour or so, maybe 2 hours. What can we do for you, sir? How you doing? Everything's going okay? He's like, hey, them rides at the top. Means them rides at the top of the Stratosphere. So we get to go do the stupid roller coaster and the Big Shot and all the other rides at the top of the Stratosphere for free. Again, I have not paid any money for this night. Like, this is amazing. This is great. So we leave the Stratosphere after we do the rides. We go to Caesars. Caesar's Palace. Caesar's Palace has many entrances. But when you have a Rolls-Royce limousine, you have the high rollers entrance you got to go to. Red carpet's rolled out for you. People, how you doing? Nice to see you. Hey, it's good to see you. You know, you're walking in, we're like, hey, this is great. I'm like, hey, where are we going, guys? Go walking into the High Rollers Casino. At the roulette table, I look over and I see Charles Barkley and Dennis Rodman playing roulette. That's pretty cool. Man, I've never been to this part of Caesars. I've never been to the high roller part. So now, me, Lucky Charm, is going to throw the bones again. Hey, you going to throw the bones again? Yeah. All right. So we walk up to this craps table. And the craps table is a big rectangular table. They vary in length. But the craps table we were at goes from about me to the wall. So it's a big craps table. A lot of people who can be gambling it. I walk up to the craps table and I stop. I look up, and at the opposite end of the craps table is the most beautiful blonde woman I have ever seen. Okay? Now, I will tell you that the largest piece of material on her outfit was the tag of how to wash her outfit. Okay? You envisioning what I'm talking about? So George is like, he's like, stir up, stir up, stir up. Dude, you know who that is? Dude, it's Tommy Lee from Motley Crue. Who was Tommy Lee married to in the 90s? Pamela Anderson. I'm looking at Pam. George is looking at Tommy. This is kind of funny. Now, if you don't know who these people are, look them up. Look up Pam Anderson. You'll kind of understand where Stirrup's being a pig on this whole thing. So, I'm like, dude. I give the devil horns. Dude, Tommy, I love Motley Crue. Tommy says to me, shut the explicitive up and roll the dice. So now Tommy and I are talking. Got a relationship. He's with Pam. So I start rolling the dice. It's going good. We're winning. It's good. It's now about 3 o'clock in the morning. We still have the car. So we go down to New York. I'm thinking this better be our last thing because I've been up since about 5 in the morning and it's now 3 o'clock the next morning. So we get to New York. So George's brother-in-law goes barreling in New York, walks up to an empty craps table in which there was still dealers at, goes, "Hey, how much to secure this table?" Secure the table means we're the only ones that get to gamble on this table. The guy says, "Sir, if you put $30,000 down on the table, you can have it for a half an hour." Boom. 30 grand down on the table that this guy's going to bet. He's getting $30,000 in chips. They've now roped off this craps table for me, George's brother-in-law, George, Joe, and Ed. Okay. I am the lucky charm. You know how he's betting. He's dropping 1,000 on 4, 5, 9, 10, 1,200 on 6 and 8 each. He's pressing his bets. And he double pressed it. So when I rolled a 4, here's $2,000. Nope. Now it becomes $3,000. I roll a 4 again. Here's $6,000. No, press it again. Okay, so the 3,000 now turns into 9,000 sitting on the 4 or the 10 or whatever was going up. I rolled one of these numbers 31 times in a row. Okay, before I rolled a 7. They colored them down on chips. They walked us to the cashier's cage with 2 guys with really fancy suits who looked like they were linebackers for the Raiders. And he cashed out that night with $243,000. I spent nothing. And people are like, did he give me any money? No. I got a steak and lobster dinner. I got to see Sir Charles Barkley and Dennis Rodman. I got to roll dice with Pam and Tommy. It was a good night. So, we're going to continue this tomorrow.